So let's see what kind of creative ingenuity I can come up with this spiky juniper here. There's one that's not spiky, that's more green right here. That one's staying. The spiky one's going away. And it's got a really interesting center to it. So I'm going to tear into it and show you that when I'm done. Alright, just took an hour and 45 minutes. I took the entire canopy off with absolutely nothing but these shears. And there's actually 2 of them in there. So a little disappointed because that means there's less material that's actually already connected. So it means more work to create a work art with it, but it's okay. Let's check it out. So the first one is down in here. It's this part and this part collectively. And then here's the second part. It's a chaos of right angles and 90s. Like this big ribbon 90 here. It's kind of cool. This is actually a breakout. Bringing over the other one. So this part is a part of the other side. I'm not sure how much further I'm going to dig, but I'm going to keep going and then tap out cup chain. Alright, good enough. I dug a hole around the base so that the 2 pieces are at least attached there. And then I dug a big enough hole to fit the power head of the chainsaw in. At that elevation, I cut this off and it'll solve problems for me getting up to the other one. Alright, did a little ring around the rosy. Pocket full of sawdust. Emissions, we all fall down. Alright, I got them pulled out in the yard. This client fortunately has a big enough yard to display their grandeur. Now the objective is to figure out what it could be and then cut off everything that isn't that so it fits in the truck. Because right now this is about a 10-foot circle. So I think I'm going to have to forfeit this breakout here because it's a little flimsy. It's not structural, so I wouldn't want to build something with that. I'll cut that off and then I can use the piece, incorporate it, and then I'll cut here and probably here and here. And I could fit that, use the other pieces on it. This one's real lanky because it went right through the middle of the other one. And so I'll cut it off like here and just up there. This one will be a little bit easier to work with as far as imagining something for it. Alright, less than 120 seconds later and they're ready to load. But the obvious conclusion to me might not be too obvious to everybody else, so sharing it again. Bada bing, now this will actually fit in the truck. It's now like a 5 to 6 foot oval. I can work with that. This one's like a 4 foot circle-ish. Work with that. And then all the little skibby scabs. Alright, I already buried the holes in. I'm going to clean up and get out of here because it's 8:30. Awesome, it's a good day. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So I'm cutting this willow tree down because it's kept declining through the years. But I have a system of turning this tree into products as I'm taking it down instead of just firewood and mulch. Here we go. The tree's coming down just fine, and before it's all the way down, I even got some anchor seal on that cut because from there down I'm milling into lumber. So that isn't going to dry out and start cracking and all that crazy stuff. The one above it is inconsequential, so I'm not worried about that. Most of that's going to be firewood. So next day, I didn't do an end video because I was excited to leave kind of later. But we got the entire canopy cut off and we got a whole bunch of a mess to clean up. Just kind of want to process on that. We got some firewood kind of happening over there because I don't chip anything smaller than 1 inch. I got to clear some brush out of here, but basically we left all the logs in place so we could cut the bits off. From here up we're going to mill. From here to here we're going to mill into short billets of, I don't know, something. And then from here down we're going to quarter saw, mill that up. And then this one log is pretty good and straight. We'll mill that. Everything else is firewood. And the dead stuff we can't exactly use, but all of this stringly green stuff is going to be bunny bales. Okay, I lopped off the 2 big hunks, so now I'm gonna start milling this stuff up, and once it's a piece I'll put the anchor sill on it, but I don't want to bust out the anchor sill every time I make a cut. It'd be pretty inefficient. I want to show you this big hunk. I was thinking it'd be really cool to have a slab with all this twisted grain, how it comes around, and have an end grain right in it. But honestly, this isn't really well attached. It's actually just a whole nother branch that wrapped around. So instead, especially being that I can only mill 28 inches and this is some 3+ feet across, I'm going to cut all of that off the top and move it aside and mill this up into pieces and maybe mill that later. I have a 28-inch milling width, and it's borderline, so I'm going to have to cut this corner off of it and maybe a little bit of this, and then I can turn all that into slabs. Okay, that came off just fine. Bop, ba-da-da-da. This one came out, let's see. Oh yeah, that's interesting stuff. Wow, pretty good. Make some pretty cool coffee tables or something. It's amazing how big that is, even though it's like so inferior to the bigger part, but hell, super pretty grain, a little bit of bark, some crotch wood, some little feathering or chatoyancy or whatever that's called. Less of it here, but yep. Okay, I got plenty of those. 4 of them. Sweet. This part is kind of garbage because it's got included bark in it and it's too thin to get a full piece out. I do all of that milling to end up only with half of it the right thickness. So that's firewood, and I'm gonna fall over, and I'll just get to this last. If I don't get to it, it's firewood too. So I still gotta mill that, cut that in quarters and mill all that up, and the other little log. So priorities. All right, I got it quartered. You can kind of see light through it. Boop, 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 boop. And the other way, it's leaning, but I went ahead and leaned it. You can see less light through this side, but it goes all the way through. This was just the mark I made for to make sure I was going the right direction to set the cut. Yep. Okay, now I gotta do a ring around the rosy. I'm gonna have to come in about this weird level, and I'll end up cutting all these weird roots off later, but it'll be awesome. Alrighty, got it all lopped off the bottom, so let's just shove it over and find out what we got. Oh, maybe I don't. Maybe it's got one little thing holding up. Oh yeah. Oh well. I can do that later. I got them in half, but I don't have the very big symbol. Get away from each other. I just gotta finish the last bit of the cut right here, and then I can start quarter sawing. Sweet. I got a whole mess of tools strung out everywhere. We're winning. Winning. So now I'm gonna quarter saw this. I keep saying that, but now I'll explain it. So, ignore those old blue marks. Now I'm going to take a 3-inch slab off of here, and then I'll take a 3-inch slab off of here, and then a 3-inch slab off of what's left, and then a 3-inch slab off of that, and then a little bit off of that, and then I'll have a weird chunk of firewood. Quarter sawn. Alright, here. And Scout needed a hug. Come hang out with me. Oh look, my hard hat doesn't work. Bash.
Don't put your thumbs in my nose. Hey. Chump.
Most of my audience isn't treeple, so I figured I'd explain this. It's a chainsaw, and that bunch of brackets is a mill. So it's a chainsaw mill. Brand name's Alaskan. From these people. Granberg. Invented in 1983. So they've made improvements, but basically you get a sled and then you set the chainsaw on there and the sled stays on the top of the cut, stays right where you want it, and you just push the chainsaw through the log. Bada bing. Once you get the first cut, it's nice and straight, then the sled just slides on the last cut and repeat. Bada bang. So to hold my sled plank on, I used 3-inch gripper screws because I needed to go through 1 1/4 inch of sled plank and deep enough into the wood to actually hold the thing, and because I had enough deviation in this first board to knead it, because this is only like 1 inch thick, and over there it gets all messed up on that leading edge. So this will plane down into a 1-inch board, but now I have a nice flat surface. I can just start cutting my 3 1/4 like those out of it. This is the first time I've quarter sawn something, and over here this is all pretty much waste. It's just like, oh, I'll just cut that off and that would be firewood, but seems how I'm milling this all up anyway. There's a pretty big audience that just like this stuff for filling it in and putting epoxy and accenting their work with it. So I might end up selling it as is, just at a lower price point. But here I am going along. First time I've ever quarter sawn something, and there's even more on the other side. So the good portion isn't even actually good. Dang it. And then I'm looking at this piece here. And there's a pretty good whiteboard this direction. But when I flip it up this direction, this isn't really wide here. And I'd still have to flatten this side because it's got junk going on with it. So I'm just going to flat saw the rest of this. You know, if you was a tree, this would look like a horror movie. Freaking body parts everywhere. Not getting real far real quick today. I got some serious brain fog, but I showed up to work anyway. This is super rotten. Like just garbage rotten. So, but that's pretty much the end of it. I'm going to tag into this guy next. Hopefully it's better. I don't want to. I'm sleepy. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. We about done. But Scott made a teepee she's got to show me. Let's have a look, see. It's your little teepee. Hanging out with Daddy. All spring break long. Oh, so cute. A nice little couch to sit on. Awesome. Good job, kiddo. Alright, here's what we got left. Just a little bit of brush and firewood. We got that trunk out of here. The big part. I'm not milling this. That's going to be firewood. I am milling this. And we got the anchor seal on it, so it's not going to crack when we're gone. I'll mill this up tomorrow. And then I get one more 2-inch slab out of this, but I hit metal on the very last one, so I gotta sharpen before I finish. And then firewood. Sweet, here's the results. Got an entire truck full of slabity davities. I didn't count them. I think I got 10 big ones and then 4 little ones. And Scout likes to be in the video. Got some firewood, and that's a wrap. I need a beer later. Last mill log here. Thought about that for a little while, and I just figured I would just pick one and roll with it. because there's a lot of included bark. I know it's rotten right up in there. So, you know, I'll just go with it. I gotta go all the way down to 6 inches on this one just to get that first cut, and then get 3 or 4 slabs and call it gravy. The rest is firewood. For some reason, I'm thinking charcuterie boards and mancala boards and smaller stuff, so I'm gonna go 2-inch instead of the 3 1/4 I've been doing. For no particular reason, I just want some variety. Here we go. Wha-bam! Got 5 of them. Pretty good yield. Here's today's project. I need to sticker all of my quarter sawn willow. This is dry stuff that I'm working on right in front of some green stuff that I'm working on. Got to get all this stickered, which is little strips of wood you put in between them so the air can move through there and they don't mildew or rot, and they do actually dry out, kind of thing. Here's what's going to happen if I don't do that process. These have been sitting here for just a week, and there's just enough darkness and just enough moisture to have this bloom of fungus. I'm going to wash my hands after this. Don't want to get sick from touching and breathing. All that. So all that white is a fungus that's coming on. I'm just going to rip some stickers up and then get these all stacked right there on those blocks, and they can hang out for a year or so or more. Whoa, bam! I just ripped up a bunch of pallet wood planks and 3/4 inch strips. Just put that my dust collector on, so I'm going to go ahead and clean up my mess now. Good enough. Sweet. Got a few of these. I'm going to do 4 per stack directly underneath the or above the bricks. Should have enough. Got about 10 of those and some smaller ones and some smaller ones. The point was to have a surplus so I could store some cookies inside to get them to dry out to make flooring tiles out of those. Yep. Bam! Got a stack of wood over in a corner. That's going to become the scene in the shop for the next 1.5 years, because that's how long it has to sit there. Sweet. But total success. That was the #1 priority today. And I ran some errands, and now I'm going off to the land of barbecue. So, you all have a good one. So the tallest stack I have in here behind the bunny bales, all the rest of the stacks are like, what, 4 feet tall, because they're a single log milled up all the way down. But the one back there is multiple logs. Well, it's actually a big enough log. I had to cut it in quarters first and then mill it up, and then other logs came from it too. And those shelves up there are the same willow, and it's measuring at like 9%, despite that they're being like 5 or 6 inches thick. All of this stuff is thinner. So at least those top 5 are good, and I could, you know, get in there and finagle them out of there, and maybe they're all good, and I could make some really cool stuff out of them. So I'm gonna go that direction if, you know, services and firewood don't take up all my time, because chop that bit here. Scout decided to join me in the workshop. Got that piece of willow pulled out. It's a lot better. Let's see. So this I could actually float without the supporting stuff. And if I'm gonna go for shelf, I might as well just go for something. So this is gonna get cut off, and that'll be firewood, and this will be for the shelf. I'll have to take and grind all of this back to wood, but this would be a pretty cool bookshelf. It could even go out into the room a little bit, I think. think that's a nice little flare. I'll just roll with it. But it's not going to fit through my sander as is anyway, so I might as well just commit to something. Oh, I need to check the moisture content. Oh yeah, doing pretty good. So it's freaking fantastic. It's even less than a catalpa. Of course, this was sitting outside in the rain lately, and this was sitting in the garage for the last 8 months. So, happy? And it took over an hour to run it through because I can only take off about a 64th, somewhere between a 100th and a 64th at a time. And it takes a good minute and a half to come all the way through at the speed I got to do it. So instead of doing that with this one and going all the way through everything, I'm going to get my grinder with the Kutzall aggressive disc and do a go over first until I can get my level to skate across it on both sides, and then use the big production sander because it is slow. It is actually a pretty big shelf. Not all that big of a hunk of wood as far as slabs go. I mean, it's a big 10-footers and whatnot, but it was a little bit of a tree, and I thought, you know what, it would behoove me to just slice it all up and make tiny little slabs out of that. And then now there's a shelf and not a short log on a job site. It really adds up to quite a bit of shelf because it sticks away from the wall quite a bit more than my other shelves even do. And that's even just the part that's flush with the wall rather than the part that sticks clear out. So it's significant. I think it's going to work really well in the corner the client has, and I'm really happy I did what I did, even though Willow's highly underrated. I actually got my ass up before the sun. I did my meditation and all the self-care. So now I got to work today at 8:30. And now I'm gonna get to flattening this guy and go through making a whole bunch of shelves. It got real boring yesterday, but that's when everybody else gives up. And I've been at this for 8 years already. So I'm gonna make something really cool out of some Teresa's pieces and be proud of it once the system actually shows to be in the black. Here we go. Okay, I got somewhere, but there's a lot to go on. Once I get into the flat part here, it creates a lot of resistance on the grinder and doesn't take off very much at a time. So I'm gonna get this guy out and really get something done. That really took a hot minute. It's already dark now. So this one's a little smaller at like 2 7/8, but this one was originally 2, and now it's at 1 3/16. So I turned 13/16 into sawdust, but we got there. It's spurty. There's a lot of inclusions, but honestly, this was the least quality pieces of the tree. Some nice curls. A little bit of spalting here and there, but it's supposed to be a bookshelf, so it's all good. I could run this through my jointer, and that edge would be nice and flat up against the wall. There was no point to do it until I had it all surfaced and flattened. Now I get to do this next one, but I learned just how many passes it takes. This guy finished out at the exact same thickness of 1 3/16. It's getting prettier as I'm getting down into the stack. Also getting deeper inclusions. This is a little bit of spalting here. It's kind of interesting. It looked like fire when I was going through it, but that kind of faded. These little prints are from the track. That'll sand out when I go to sand the straight scratches out with an orbital. But for right now, this is a rough offering. It's exactly how it would be done if they want rough. And I'd leave the bark on, and I'd leave all the holes, and I would just lacquer it and call it good for a bookshelf. Alternatively, if they want a higher quality thing, then I could either fill in all of the inclusions with epoxy so they have a continuous surface, sand all of the bark off, the old chainsaw marks, and that would yield them something a little easier to clean. Not that you would clean a bookshelf all that much, you just dust it off really. But to be able to offer another thing, I have another option. So it's not going in a real big space. I have all of this clear willow here as well, and that would suffice for a shelf. There's no inclusions in this stuff. Probably ought to get one of these sanded down to good enough to go. Yep, here that goes. So there we go. Clear grain versus inclusions. This is rustic, and this is a little more refined. I could even fake a live edge onto this edge with a grinder, and it would match what I'm going to do. So I probably ought to go ahead and do that. But I really want to start with one edge that's flat for the wall first, and then mess around with the other side. Yeah, here we go. So tomorrow I'm doing a bid on a shelf. It's not a done deal, but I'm being prepared. So whether this goes to the intended client or not, it's still a pretty good piece. Might as well fix it all the way up. I'm not going to get this checking fixed up because it's just exactly that, checking. This is kind of spalting, I think. Maybe it's checking, but it's far enough in. Okay. The breeze does not help. Okay, I blocked the view in the last video, so now I'm the lumberjack explaining in this one. So this is called CA glue, which is short for a really long word I figured out how to pronounce right after I looked it up. But basically it's off brown super glue, and this is an activator. So put it on there, and you're not supposed to have your face above it because it off gases pretty bad, but it reacts with the moisture, and it takes just a few seconds, and now it's totally hard. So it isn't going to glue my fingers together, and I can keep going. All of that white stuff on the surface is going to get sanded off, so I'm not worried about running it too fast. I just want to make sure it doesn't turn white down inside of the crack I'm filling. Right, so with a tiny bit more effort than it took to sand out the scratches from the sander, there's some here and there aren't any over here. I got all the CA glue sanded off and it revealed a couple inclusions. So now I just need to repeat the process on these little pits here, and it showed some punky wood that I can stabilize and this little bit over here, so I'll repeat the process and succeed. There we go. So here's my faked out live edge. Total fake out. Oh look, there's even this little knot here that oh dang, I didn't actually include that. But if I was going to install this, I would fix that up too. But this is just a mock-up. It's a representation for right now of what it could be. I'd have to break all these sharp edges and things, and I wouldn't be leaving all of the checking in. That would get cut off, but there's no point in cutting it until I know what size I need to make the shelf. Same as all of this. That whole 4-inch section will get cut off because of how deep the checking goes. It even blew out the other side a little bit. But I inadvertently, because of a chainsaw mark right here, ended up making this knot into like a branch. Happy with it, but it is just a fake out. So there's this version and the other version. This would be high end, the other stuff would be low end, unless we fill it in with epoxy, then it's all just high end. Real quick before I went out to my bid, I got a finish thrown on this slab to show the difference between finished and unfinished. Way better. Yep. So a lot more depth to the wood with a finish on it. Oh yeah, cool stuff. And this CA glue stuff turned out fantastic. It's completely smooth. It cannot be perceived by the touch. This was a part of the bid. I showed up with the 2 different shelf options and a fully stripped down piece of that juniper bush to show the actual colors and all that. And then all of this masking tape job we did was to give a visual representation of our capacity and our vision in the actual space, so the client had the confidence we could pull off something that scale with that abstract of a intention and actually pull it off, instead of be like, look, I got bits of wood, now sign up for me to do whatever I feel like, kind of thing. And then this also gave them the adaptability to say, well, we'll do a little this or a little that, or this shelf's too high or that shelf's too low, that kind of thing. And I got some valuable feedback from that, so this was incredibly helpful to the whole process.
Up high in the iron rain, the sky it roars like a beast in pain. Steel meets steel with the fiery spark. We march through the storm to light the dark. Oh, hear the thunder's call. It shakes the earth, it claims us all. Through fire and frost we stand tall. hearts in stone. We fight as one but bleed alone. Axes rise to the crimson sky. We conquer or fall but never die.
Drums of war, they pound, hearts ignite with the primal sound. Chanting voices rise and soar, echoes of the clans of yore. Oh, hear the thunder's call, it shakes the earth, it claims us all. Through fire and frost we stand tall. Hear the thunder's call.
Okay, I landed the job with the tree shelf thing. I'll post more about that here in the next few minutes. Thanks, Cassie, for the recommend. You're awesome. These are going to be the shelves. We're going to go with rustic willow and not the straight grain catalpa. This is the original design that we mocked up in the client's house. Absolutely maximizing their space. It's 12 feet on the highest to the right and 11 feet on the lowest to the left. So we just filled the space up with tree and shelves and gave her a price on that. But she's working on a budget and we don't work for free, so we eliminated 7 of the 16 shelves and now she still has 9 of them in a very tree-ish shape. We're going to get this all busted out here in about 3 weeks. You want to know something funny about Grassroots Beginnings? This is 220, and my garage doesn't have 220, but my laundry room does. Yep. Yeah. Where is it? I know. Where it go? There it is. Yep. Cool. I just get to leave this door open. It'll be fine. Yay. And then I also have to plug in this motor to a different one, so it takes all of my power cords. So I can't do anything but carve while it's running. And then I have to have the other one plugged in to the dust collector, or else I can't run it. I forgot to show the juniper bush before I started cutting on it, but I've gotten it broken down into things that travel in a plane as wide as a shelf. So even though it's wide visually in one dimension, it's pretty thin in another dimension, which is what I need for the project. So that's going to work out great. It's going to take a hot minute to get all of the bark off of it, and then due to boring insects, I'll probably have to heat this over the fire just to make sure all the buggly wugglies are dead, or I gotta carve all the way down beneath all of the worm galleries to ensure that they haven't gone into the wood, which they have. So I'll have to heat it. Dang it. All good. Part of the process. I'll save all the little sticks and then I can just graft those in with my woodworking skills. While I was working on the juniper bush, I decided one more of these slabs, and they have inclusions here and there, like a little bit of bark, but this one has the worst inclusion and is not structurally stable because it's not fully attached except for in these tiny little ribbons and right here. So this will have to be for sale for a different project, and I'll keep tearing into what I got. This one actually turned out thicker by just a 1/16, but it won't matter in the visual effect of the whole project. And I'm not even using that one, so screw it. Okay, I got the last of the small ones like you've been seeing off the top. These ones are 3-inch. And then I got a couple of smaller ones in here that I could use up. And then they get thick again. Yeah, I don't know. These are huge. They're definitely not going to fit in the sander. So these are going to be something different. I don't know. These are intended to be luthier stock, so like you could get a guitar out of the center of this one, but maybe not shelves. I will have to keep working away at my concept here, but one step at a time. I got this. Okay, I should keep going with the carving on things. Where's my stuff? You know what? I'll just get the other one out too and cluster this area up. I gotta get all this bark off. And here's the best tool to do it until you get into the more difficult parts. I need to get my knees around this so I can hold it. There we go. Okay, so I'll just kind of go through and rough off all the fuzzy stuff. And then once that's done, I got to get through this cambium layer. And what I'm trying to do is get through to the wood. And then that will take a stain and a finish and not fall off. And that's all good. But this is incredibly tedious. So I'll sand some slabs while I'm at it. It's after 10 and I should be in bed, but I'm a sucker for punishment, so I'm going to keep working. This double line is like a big one and a little one. Kept happening toward the end of it. This one, I kind of underestimated how thick it was because I measured it and I said, okay, 2 7/8, and I set it at 2 7/8, but it was so bowed out that I think it crushed my Velcro because I can find it right here. And I can fill that all the way around. I don't think the sandpaper is dull. I think I have enough to replace this run of it and just get fresh sandpaper. And hopefully I didn't crush my Velcro, or else it's $50 bucks total. Because whatchamacallit? Because the things. Oh, the Velcro is only 25 bucks, but the shipping's 25 bucks too. So we'll see. Oh no, that sandpaper was toast. Yeah. Hopefully I didn't also destroy my Velcro. Not a bad. Get the air hose and blow all that off. And the Velcro doesn't feel like it has a run in it. Doesn't look burnt. Maybe it was just sandpaper. Fingers crossed. Where'd that roll go? Dang it. Oh well, I'll figure it out. Sweet, got 5 shelves sanded to thickness. Those are good. Some of them are ripped and some of them are not, so they go against the wall. Here's the rip cuts. I just set them up here on my... Oh shit, this is going to be in the way. Suppose I ought to hang this somewhere else. Yeah, okay, cool. Not in the way. And then all of these... I kind of am inclined to save them because they could work for some interesting frames, but only if they're 2 inches wide on the side with the most bark. So like I wouldn't go on here 2 inches wide. I would go on the shorter side 2 inches wide. So if this chunk is fine, all of that's going to go in the cutoffs box. For firewood, this is cutoffs, firewood, and you know, a whole bunch of other shit that was laying around up here on the bench. Could maybe be carved, maybe be cutoffs. It's getting to be a problem, so I'm going to zip all of this up and then I can get to work. Good morning, everybody. Working in the shop a little bit today and on the chipper and everything. You know, piles of wood on top of a stack of wood. So I just moved a bunch of cookies to the inside of the house so I could lay them out in the evenings when it's dark and really cold out here. But I'm kind of creating a path so I can get my body weaved all the way in here and unstack all of this willow, throw it all out in the driveway, find the ones that are going to work for the shelf, and then pretty much put it all back because I don't got time to mess with it and break it all down right now. But I'm going to win. Yeah. Got to keep coming in to warm up. It's but ugly cold out there. This one's all cleaned up. All the way in. Pretty nice. I got some O. These are some wild, twisty stuffs. It'll work. It'll be weird. Another one bites the dust. It goes, and there's a poof at the top. Poof. I'll probably use this part flat against the wall in this S-curve shape, and then cut that part off and reattach it 90 degrees so that it just goes somewhere else to hold up a shelf, or I'll try and graft it into the side or something. This is the beast. This will be the base of the tree, even though it's bush shape. I kind of wonder if I can even fit it in my house. It needs to happen, because I don't want to do this outside. Fudge sickles. You know, sometimes you just do stupid shit because you're a stupid person in the first place. Yeah. Oh, hey, there's all them cookies I put inside so I can lay out the flooring tiles later. Right. Don't look at my trash. It was trash day, and I missed the last 3 days of trash day. Alright, well, this is bush shaped, and I gotta cut it all up and put it back together in a tree shape. It's literally how it was sitting. About like that. And then the other one that's been chopped up was woven up into it as well. So there's actually 2 bushes, not one, but we thought it was one until I got into it. So now I need to go through and dismantle this into flat shapes instead of broad shapes. So here's what I mean once again by that. I'll put this big guy. Yeah. Good Lord. Yeah. It's a broad shape this direction, but this direction, it's flattish. So I need to conceive of how to take this guy apart. Okie dokie, let's see if I can do this in 1 minute. So the plan to cut this guy down is that down here. Oh, yikes. At the base, there's a branch that comes off right here, and it's in a nice little plane all by itself. This one is a standalone, so he'll have to come out and just be a single piece, but there's a nice 1, 2, 3, 4 branches here in a fan shape. So that's coming off there. And then I really like how this part all travels in one plane here. So from the base all the way to this horn, and then up all the way. I could put a shelf here and cut this little guy off, and then this guy is its own flat surface here, and I cut this off and just have a fork. Yep. Being able to see something before it's done, you got it or you don't. I'm a sleepy lumberjack. It's 1:58 and I spent exactly 6 hours and 42 minutes getting this far. I'm just the biggin'. Half of it. So this half is all clear and ready to go. And a good half of the other half, so I'd probably more than 75% done with it. But this area will be pretty complicated. That'll go pretty predictably quick. It's usually about 1 hour per stick. So, like, this guy would be 1 hour. I'll find a better way next time. Oh well. Good night. I just gotta finish the last bit of the cut right here, and then I can start quarter sawing. Sweet. Okay, once I had that knocked over, I had 4 quarters to work with, and I needed to make a cut to get it flat. So some of them are like projected and squat. I'm gonna have to cut all of that off just to make a shelf out of this. But I figured that some 1x-ish material would be pretty useful, and it turns out it's going to work out for this project and save my bacon because I don't have enough of it unless I use these. Everything else is in 3-inch. I'm not going to use that for shelving. That's way too much. That's more for like a bar top or a different project. But anyway, I got a whole lot of sanding to do because these weren't cut even, because the first cut has to go with a sled and the second cuts and successive ones are a whole lot more even with the Alaskan sawmill setup. But I'm really glad I planned it like that and kept them. Cause, yeah. Okay, making some hard calls. It kills me to do reductive manufacturing, but that's what I do. This is all worm-eaten and garbage, so that's not going to work. I would like to put the whole thing through there because this edge is kind of viable, but it's not completely, and I would end up wasting a lot of sanding time. So I'm just going to cut it off here and sell this for firewood and put this in my own fireplace because nobody wants that shit. Then this one, on the other hand, is viable because it's not punky enough to not hold up books. And I can heat it up with a fire, make sure all the buggly wugglies are dead, and just use it anyway. But that's not going to fly, so we'll get after it. Yeah, check that out. Insect behavior. Boring insects. Larvae. I knew they were in here, but I had to allow it to dry before I could kiln it and kill them, but they went right in the very middle, which tells me that this happened after all of this work happened, after I sawed it up. So that means all of them have activity going on underneath, inside the actual board, not just the tree, but in the board itself. That's irritating. That means I got to heat all of these up to 130 degrees internally before I can trust that they're not going to come out of the woodwork or continue to eat it in somebody's house. Yippee-ki-yay. I don't got a kiln or time to wait around for a kiln. So the parts that are actually viable, that are straight enough and not eaten, are going to get roasted. So I'm going to make this fire pretty big, and these are going to get kind of too hot to touch. And when they stay too hot to touch for an hour, I'll know they're good enough and I can flip them around and do the other side, because they're not getting a whole lot of heat off the ring. They're not getting hot enough off of that, and the backside is getting cool. So I'll need to turn them and flip them. This will take me all day, but I also need to move a whole bunch of wood. It's been about an hour and this finally got up to temperature. These flames are a little close to that guy, but yeah, this is working. Working. Cool. I got this pretty hot. You can see the smoke on the stuff, and I just flipped those maybe 30-45 minutes ago. So they got pretty warm. There is kind of smoke, and it is kind of roasting as far as the malodation that happens with heat, like making black garlic. But yeah, he's got 30 roasted. I'm happy with it. I think they're all dead, and one of them fell out earlier and it was all dried up in the first place. So I'm thinking that one was an example of this part drying out and then this part drying out, and so they were only eating through the wet stuff in the middle, and I've thought about it at all. And then once that dried out, they were dried out and they fell right out. So my heating it up was just to guarantee it for my own personal feel good about itness. Cool.
Oh yeah. Just standing here. Watching this obnoxiously ponderous sound of the village work. Flip, turn. Drink some beer. Repeat. Yay.
Okay, I briefly turned all the machines off so you could hear me yakety schmackety. But being that my personal expression and my audience are inextricable, I have to respect my audience to respect myself. Yeah, okay. This guy's getting pretty thin. It's all the way down at just like 1 1/16, whereas the other ones are clear up here at 1 5/16 as a standard. Whoa, yeah, there we go. Right, so it's going to look really disingenuous to put a bunch of these guys on a project and then put a thinner one on a project. But I think I can get away with murder, so I'm going to do it anyway. How that works is trees tend to get smaller toward the top, so I'll put the thinner stuff on the top and it'll look okay. But this surface is fine. All good in the hood. However, the other side still has this huge, horrible gouge into it with the chainsaw. And it's already pretty thin. If I go that thin, I'm going to end up with like a 5/8 shelf. So I can't do that. So here's a solution. I'm going to use this as the surface that books are put on, and then I'm just going to take a sander and sand all the chainsaw marks out, and the bottom will look a little different, but it'll still function. And the client asked for a discount, so, and this is how the discount's happening. I'm leaving it. Okie dokie, all set up on site. I got some trees pieces. Don't quite have all of them stripped down to the wood just yet, but we got to take it all back apart and finish it off-site anyway. So these guys going right over in the corner, and I'm gonna start chopping it up. Woo-hoo. Okay, this is coming along. I got the very first part of the tree in and the first shelf in. It's just kind of one step at a time. Okay, so I have a screw in the very bottom into the baseboard, and a screw here into the sheetrock, and a screw here into the sheetrock, and then I'll replace those with butterfly anchors later once this is all finished out. And then I gave myself instructions on how to jigsaw this guy off, and now I need to go make this 45-degree cut so I can bury that in the corner. Just measured it, it's 90 degrees, 0.2, which is pretty dang close to 90, surprisingly. And then I need to shorten this up to just 11 inches at the thin spot. Yep. Once again, redactive manufacturing kills me a little bit, but we came to the conclusion we don't need 16-inch bookshelves because most books are only like 9 to 10 inches wide, so you need an 11-inch bookshelf. I measure my own bookshelves, they're all 11 inches, so I will end up with some little bits of willow to use on another project. But this Craig jig is fantastic because this little guy right here is spring-loaded, and the other blue block at the end is sitting in there at an angle, so I just add pressure and it's clamped into place. Now I can just zippity-doo-dah. This is a 12-inch. It's the big kind instead of a 10-inch, and it's a miter saw, and it's a compound bevel, and it doesn't cut through an 11-inch board at a 45-degree angle. This is just wonderful. It's a good thing I got another little saw I can finish that out with very carefully. So we got one piece faked into the next, and then this piece comes up and line it up so it's working out visually, and then I have to cut that part off, and then this part off of this guy so he can come up and around. And now I need to marry these together and then shape them. Yep, just like that. Okay, they line up in a conceivably perfect order, even though there's an inch of difference between them where it's technically longer. And then I just need to shape this part. Won't even need to shape the back side, just the front. And it's a permanent installation, so this part won't come apart when I go to do the finishing, because I gotta take it all back apart and then finish it off-site and put it back together. I'll get a shot of those arborvitaes now that they're finished here in a bit. But I just wanted to put me in the space next to the tree shelving because the picture makes it look flat and dwarfish, but it's really freaking tall. I can't even reach up here, so it's definitely one you gotta do with a stool or a ladder or something. That's how I built it, but it's a beacon. Here's the final result. Bada bang. I will do a good job cleaning up and refilm this in a sec, but just showing mechanically how I got it to work out. I used these guys and these guys. So where I laminated one thing into another, like this guy, that's just a hole in the back with a cute little screw in it. And then everywhere there's a stud, I got these long 2-inchers. And then everywhere in between, like there's another 2-incher, is just a little screw. And then I'll replace that with sheetrock butterfly anchors to support a whole lot of books. Yep. Very happy. All done. I'm a little sad now because now I have to take it all apart. Oh well, part of the process. Once I put it back up, it'll look a lot better too because all the bark is coming off of the face of the shelves and off of all of the trees' pieces, and I get to soften all the corners and ends of the shelves. So this will be cut at an extreme angle and softened up a bit, kind of like how this one has already been done. But other things like this will be cleaned up and it'll finally become what it's supposed to be. But now to take it all back apart. Yay! What a sad, disconjointed portion of the room. And my creation turned into a surprisingly small pile of bones. But it'll all go back shortly. I moved inside because it's getting dark and I got plenty of light in here. Well, it actually is dark. I ain't proving shit out there now. So, this is the bottom shelf, so I'm not going to worry about that chainsaw marks or this difference here. I did blend that out with a sander on the other side. And then this I went through with the 80. This is still at 100 from the production sander. So I went through this with the 80 with the random orbital. And now I got to go down to 100. But I'm going to go through all of these with the 80 before I go down to 100. And I still got to do the edge with the 80. But to do that, I had to put a utility blanket on the sawhorses because now that I'm to 80, I'll start denting the heck out of this soft willow. So I'm making accommodations as I'm moving up. It's nice and sunny out. That was the last one. I got the other ones all sanded up. They're looking pretty good. The last step is to go through with the hand sanding and take all the ridges off. So like, there's kind of like a face there and like a line. There's contours here. There's like a double contour there. You can see a line, you can see another line. So we'll go through and blend all that out by hand real quick. Alright, I got the first coat on them. I used something because Ace didn't have lacquer. So I used, I don't know. And then I followed the instructions. Looks like lacquer enough to me. So did the thing. So I did the first coat and it's really rough because it all the fibers popped up, so I certainly have to do 2 coats after I do the 220 sanding, and there's little flakes in it because I couldn't avoid it, but yeah, we'll do 2 coats. So next step is to flip them over and do the backside and then hand sand them all with 220 and do another coat. Yay! I got the second coat on the tops maybe 30 minutes ago, and I feel dry enough to go inside now, but I'd rather leave them for the full like 3 hours. It's too cold for them to actually keep drying, but you know, I would rather leave them be until it gets real dark, and then I'll take them inside and we'll do the back and a third coat tomorrow. So the neighbor said, no, don't burn, because he's got asthma, so I stopped. But I'm still finishing these up, so we'll get to cleaning some brush out a different way. All good. I did a time lapse of me putting the finish on these guys, but it turned out kind of boring, so I'm not posting it. But anyway, I got one coat, and then the 220 sanding, and then another coat, and the sun's actually out today, so it'll all dry out, and I'll have this all done in one day instead of the 2 days it took me to do the shelves. And I can go install this tomorrow. Okay, I'm installing the tree shelving today, and I'm going on the premise that I'll have gripper screws going into the studs, which for some reason on this house is 18 inches, or at least on this wall. It's supposed to be 16 inches for dimensional lumber and 22 inches for nominal lumber, but apparently they just framed however they felt like here. So that puts me at having gripper screws going into studs every 18 inches, and in between that is the butterfly anchors, which puts me having fasteners every 9 inches. It's a pretty good overbuilt system, but nevertheless, I knew I was going to have to put the screw in the hole and then the butterfly on the screw, and then once I plug it into the wall, I'm never going to get that back. So I'm doing a test piece to sacrifice this one to the gods of sheetrock and find out what I find out before I start drilling all these holes to the 3/8 of an inch that it specifies. So here that goes. Here's the find out part. Dang. It didn't actuate because the thickness of the sheetrock. Fudge sickles. There's enough room for it to actuate, but the sheetrock is thicker than the distance between the end and the board. And I didn't have a long enough drill bit to go in all the way, I don't think. I'm not sure this is seated. So maybe I leave, go to the hardware store, get longer ones and a longer drill bit so I don't have to do this by hand. Yep, I went to the hardware store and got the things, because no matter what I did, it didn't get better. In fact, it got worse. So I had to just leave, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to win anyway. So the gripper screws will hold, I don't know what, like 150 pounds. These butterfly anchors will hold 70. So, yeah, take two. Fudge sickles. Click, yay, it worked. Just prove it better. I got a hold tension on the butterfly. There's the back of the sheetrock for the tighten up. Oh yeah, that's good. And then we'll get some Teresa's pieces underneath of it to keep it from wiggling like that. Of course it's going to wiggle like that even with a whole bunch of fasteners in, but the Teresa's pieces coming out at the angle will give it a structure to holdy. Alrighty, it works. I'm going to start installing this now. Yeah, so the 3 inches are working out with the butterfly anchors. I have to put that's the wrong screw. Shnikes, here we go. I have to put these in the wood and then the butterflies on the screw and then push that into the wall, and I got to do all 3 of them all at once before I can put the gripper screws in, or else there's not going to be tension on the back of the sheetrock to hold it in place, and it'll just spin around endlessly. So these guys first, but if I install these guys, then the ones going this direction, I wouldn't be able to use the same fasteners, because then I wouldn't be able to get this to stay put on the other side of the wall, because they would be opposing each other. So I had to go get a different fastener system that goes into the wall in the first place, and then this goes. I could have just used all of these, but those are more expensive. I don't know. Sweet, finishing up this tree shelving today. Just going through and using dowels to hide all of the holes and things like that. So I got a bunch of these little pre-cuts things to hide the pocket holes, and then I forgot just normal straight dowels, so this thing got pretty spiky, just improvising. But then I cut them off and then carve them back and put some Odie's oil on them. They're turning out just fine. Bada bing. Bada bing. Yep. A1 100% complete. All done. It's significantly taller than I am.
Alright, we're due back in 1 month. My library. Here we go.
So, I'm gonna go this on Monday. I'm gonna read this. I'm so good. Since I don't have any other books to read, I have like 4 of them in my desk. Like they're for me to read. Because it's sitting in there. And
It's gonna be the right book if it's not speaking to you, you know.
I see one of these in every tree I cut down, every log I forfeit for firewood. Like abstract portions of a puzzle, they all reach out at me like ghosts in the night, staring at me without eyes, looking to fit in a memorial of what they once were, to live again for a little bit longer, to hold the potential energy of vivid hallucinations, in an open poem kind of way, as an invitation to see inside oneself.